Hello, everyone. Glad to see you joining. Let's
Hello.
wait for a couple minutes. Let's make sure that other people also join, and then we can start.
Good afternoon from Riyadh.
Good afternoon. Actually, it would be interesting to know where other people are joining from.
Hello from Germany.
Hello. Okay. Where exactly in Germany?
Right now next to Hanover.
Okay.
At
Okay.
the highway.
Okay. Thanks for finding the time. Even when on the road, still have the time
I'm
to
really
join us.
excited about the webinar. Yeah.
It's good. Good. We'll
So
try to
thank you.
not disappoint and to make it exciting.
I'm sure. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let's wait for maybe 1-2 more minutes and then we can start. If anything, then other people will join us along the way. Robbie, you look very serious. The serious topic, the serious Robbie.
I'm I'm trying just to get involved with the webinar.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, let me share my screen and
Yeah,
then I
please.
think we can slowly start. So, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
works.
it's clear.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Clear.
So yeah, let's kick it off. Our today's topic is next generation pay stations or cost-effective solutions for the modern parking. And today I'm your host, Alex. I'm head of product here at BIS, and I'll be happy to share some insights that we have here at BIS, also some case studies from the previous projects, and hopefully this will be useful to you. So, what are the topics that we will cover today? First of all, trends and challenges in on-street parking payments. What is the scope of the next generation pay station? So what do we um, understand by the next generation pay stations? What are the requirements for municipalities to actually manage the pay stations or on-street parking systems? How to replace the outdated pay stations with the new ones? What are the approaches that are there? And finally, the case study about the Riga Satex means big project that we've executed with the municipality of Riga, and you will be able to learn a bit more details about the project. Along the way, we'll actually also have a couple of interactive exercises. So hopefully you'll be active today and you'll participate. Good. So yeah, let's kick it off. And we'll also leave some time at the end for the questions, of course. Before I start, a little bit about BIS, if somebody doesn't know. So we are both a system integrator and also a solution provider, and we provide solutions in various sectors. So our main and core direction is parking, and we cover on-street parking control, off-street parking control. We also have some solutions in parking guidance, mainly the free space recognition, the camera-based one. And also we have some experience of integrating various EV chargers and providing a software to actually remotely manage the EV charging points. Apart from that, we have a second business line, which is more focused on access control. We provide the access control system that could be used for manufacturers, for commercial properties, and other use cases. We have the work time tracking module, which is especially relevant for the manufacturers, visitor management module, and also membership management module that is has quite a high popularity among the segment of sports centers, spas, fitness centers, and so on and so forth. So these are two directions, but today, as I mentioned before, we'll focus on-street parking. So let's proceed. Trends and challenges. I'll start with the challenges first. We here are a few examples from the on-street parking meters that are installed in various cities. Quite often, these are outdated pieces of hardware which damage um, the view of the city, and which can also damage the reputation of the city. As you can see on the screenshots, a lot of them are not heavily maintained. Therefore, you can see graffitis. Some of them are broken and do not work. And more specifically, it's quite often it's an outdated solutions which do not cater for the modern needs of the modern individuals. We'll share a couple of facts of why we do believe that parking meters and pay stations are still relevant as of today. But for example, in the middle of the screen, it's a parking meter from one of the US cities, which still operates, and it's a pure coin based. It doesn't accept cash, doesn't accept cards. I'm not even talking about supporting selling different products through the parking meters and the pay stations. The one of the debates in the industry is whether the parking meters and on-street pay stations should be completely replaced. And given that we have the mobile apps in the modern world. And our answer to that is no, definitely not, because there are a couple of reasons why it still makes sense to maintain and to have on-street parking meters and pay stations in cities. First of all, it's an accessible option for tourists and elderly people. For example, if I myself travel somewhere by the car inside Europe, I don't know what are the mobile apps that are being in use, for example, in Poland, in Germany, and in other countries that I go to. And for me, much a more efficient way to pay for the on-street parking is to use a parking meter and pay station. This is something that everybody understands. Speaking about of people more elderly, senior people, they sometimes do not have a smartphone. And for them, again, if they don't have the smartphone, and if the municipality or city would only have the possibility to pay for the parking via mobile app, they simply would not be able to pay it at all. So it's not inclusive. It's not accessible to everyone. We believe that the future of the pay stations is when you have the large screens, the intuitive interfaces, and there's no app download needed, so that you can cater for the needs of these two personas that I've described before. Second thing is modern pay stations support various payment methods, including obviously card, including the NFC cards that you have on your phone, so Google, Apple Pay, and also cash. And in some countries, still a lot of the transactions are happening in cash. So we, for example, have recently started developing our business in Balkan countries, and we've realized that a lot of the transactions are still happening in cash. So this proportion is not. It's about 60 to 40 in some specific municipalities and the cities. So completely not giving a possibility for people to pay with cash is also not being inclusive. Third thing that I've already mentioned is that in case of the in case you only have the mobile app, then you would require a smartphone to operate it. And not only senior people are the ones who might not have it. There are also other groups of people who might not have the smartphone in their hand, and therefore they would not be able to pay for the on-street parking. The fourth point is multilingual support. So the modern pay stations have localization built in. So there are various language options to suit regional users and tourists, whereas apps are primarily focused on the local audience, and therefore they're not always localized. And also, it's not sometimes, even if you have traveled, for example, I traveled to Poland and Germany and found out what is the application that should be used within that specific city. I went to the app store, I downloaded the app. So I've already taken a lot of the actions to make it happen. I had to authorize, I had to sign up. But still, after going into the interface most likely will be in the local language, and it might be hard for me to even find the language settings in order to change the language and in order to be able to actually make use of that mobile app on this that operates within that specific region. Whereas with the pay stations, usually it's a quite a in the case of modern pay stations, quite a modern, intuitive interface. There is a language switcher somewhere at the in the corner of the screen, and it's easy for everyone to understand how they can change the language, and therefore they won't be left out and they won't have problems of actually paying for parking. Um, the last thing is the real-time updates. There is a myth that it's not possible to update the pay stations in real time. When you, for example, develop any new functionalities on top of your mobile app, then they go out in real time. But we actually, in the projects that we've executed with on-street parking systems, we are able to deploy the changes to all the pay stations all at once in real time, and we are able to deliver interface updates, adding more payment methods, adding more products in a very fast way. So it's a myth that it's not possible to provide real-time updates for the parking meters as it is for the mobile apps. So even though I completely understand the trend, we're going mobile, absolutely, there's still a lot of benefits of keeping the on-street parking systems and keeping parking meters in the city. A couple of facts for you. So we've analyzed a couple of reports. One of them is the parking industry report from Park Mobile, and in the survey that these guys did, 48% of parking users still prefer pay stations or parking meter because they offer payment options without needing a smartphone or without needing to download a specific app. And nowadays we have a lot of apps installed on our phone, and sometimes you just don't want to make this extra activities in order to install the app. Cities that are using the pay stations and have parking meters achieve 20% higher compliance rates, so ensuring that senior users or tourists can make the payments easily, and therefore increasing the overall like appeal of the municipality and so on. And last but not least, pay stations with multilingual options improve satisfaction for 78% of international visitors, again, making it very accessible. So everything that I mentioned in the slide before, it's supported by the stats. It's supported by the stats in the industry, and I think the next time you travel somewhere, you would probably also think about the stats, and you would understand that yeah, you are one of them. It's not as easy being a tourist somewhere else and navigating the whole payment process of paying for the parking. Now let's stop for a second, and I actually want to ask you a question. You can drop it in the chat. So how do you pay for parking in your city? So that's one. And how do you pay for parking when you're traveling as a tourist to other countries? It would be interesting to know. So if you can drop in the chat, that would be very much appreciated. I will quickly move this to another screen. Okay, Sank is writing that he is using the credit card. So credit card for both when you are in your city and when you're traveling as a tourist, or for one of these cases. Okay, for both.
Well, most of the parking payments here in Riyadh is except credit card. So paying cash is a rare option.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. But credit card, so not the mobile app, but like physically tapping or swiping your credit card.
Correct.
Did I understand you correctly? Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. It's interesting to see the different perceptions, and thanks, Axel, also for sharing. Gleb is saying that he doesn't pay when he's parking his car in his own city, so that's also an option for sure. So let's proceed with the content, and let's discuss what is the scope of the so-called next generation pay station. So how they should look like, what are the functionalities that they should have. As mentioned before, the old pay stations, first of all, they often look ugly, so they ruin the city's visual appeal, and they have often small screens. They lack user friendliness. It's not easy to understand how you can actually use the thing. Which is the problem. We believe that the next generation pay station, first of all, they should have ergonomic interfaces. They should look good. They should appeal visually to the end users, to the visitors of the city, because that's part of the city infrastructure. And I've, for example, myself traveled in September to various countries. One of them was Azerbaijan and Georgia. And when I've seen that there's a lot of rust on the pay stations, there's a lot of graffitis, I didn't want even to come to it and touch it. Not saying that it was actually ruining the very beautiful scenery that was in the city. We also believe that the next generation pay stations should have a large touchscreen displays. So again, if people have the uh, problem with the sight, so their vision is not as good and sharp, they should be able to see everything on the big screen, and they should be able to. It also gives us, the solution providers, the possibility to put more information, lay out the information better on the screen, and therefore interact with the end user, so that it's much more easier for them to make the payment, to make the decisions, and to go through the flow of the user interface. Another thing is the accessibility features. So as I mentioned, there might be people with the disabilities who, for example, are visually impaired. So equipping the pay station with the accessibility features, like for example, the voice-over commands of the user interface, or the specific pins for visually impaired people to understand and navigate, the same as you see in the ATMs. It's critical and it's very important, so that we are inclusive and we are accessible to everyone. Next point is, in the old pay stations, the upgrades are usually very expensive. And sometimes you as a municipality, or you as operator, you're locked in, and you cannot get any updates. So for example, if we look at the parking meter on the left, you got it as a end product, and then there is no additional updates that you can get with that product. And if it was installed, let's say 10 years ago or 15 years ago, then it will be the same even today. While we believe that the future of the pay stations is, there is a software running on the under the hood, and it's possible to deploy the updates to the software at the frequent pace, because we might understand after users start interacting with the pay stations, we might understand, for example, that some people get confused and they don't finish their payment flow, and therefore we can improve the UI and UX in order to solve these issues. Or for example, I mentioned two examples of the municipality that we worked with. They started with just a basic flow for paying paying for parking, but then after that they've added the possibility to pay for the fines. So people who, for example, didn't pay for their parking and got fined, they received the fine in the email, and they had an option to either do a bank transfer, or they were also able to come to the pay station, choose an option to pay for the fine, and pay for the fine from the same pay station. The third use case that they layered on top is selling the subscriptions. So there were certain zones within the municipality uh, where people lived, and they sometimes parked their car on street. And paying every day would be too expensive for them. So municipality provided a possibility to purchase parking permits or subscriptions. But again, it wasn't a very simple process to renew those parking permits and subscriptions. And it was possible to add this use case to the pay station so that the end user could pay for the parking permit, renew the parking permit from the pay station itself, which was pretty useful and intuitive. It's also we will talk about it a bit later, but we also here at BIS provide so-called retrofits for the legacy pay stations, which provide municipalities a possibility to have more cost-effective upgrades. So get rid of the old hardware or install the new software in existing parking meters. But we'll talk about this in much more details later in this webinar. Older pay stations are also often prone to vandalism, and that at the end of the day results in higher maintenance costs and sometimes can result even in the revenue loss. Whereas we believe that the next generation pay station, the housing should be designed with that in mind. We are using the materials that are, for example, not like it won't be as easy to draw a graffiti that would actually stay there forever. And there are a lot of other cases when, for example, we are adding the more sophisticated lock mechanism so that it's not possible to actually open up the pay station and steal something from it or break it, and which would disrupt the operation of the pay station system. And last but not least, we believe that in the future, the pay stations and the mobile apps should coexist. So they are not replacing one another. They're two parts of the one goal of allowing the users to pay for the parking. So they should be integrated with mobile apps for seamless payment experience. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you both have a mobile app and you also can pay through the pay stations, they should communicate between one another. And if someone paid in the pay station, then this information should be sent to the mobile app operator so that they know that the payment has been made. And it's also, we've seen some cases not on the on-street side for the municipalities, but mostly for the off-street, where, for example, you can start your session in the mobile app, you can pay, but then, for example, you've added the money to the digital wallet of the mobile app, but your money has gone, and you don't have any more money in the digital wallet of the mobile app. But then you would be able to actually, if you stayed for longer, to pay the remaining amount in the pay stations. You would not have to top up the wallet if it takes you more time. So you can just come to the pay station and pay from there directly. Going into more details, so we believe that the pay stations of the future should have a positive environmental impact. So one of the aspects and components here is the solar panels, so that pay stations do not only take the energy from the grid, but they also are able to take the energy from the solar panels. This is eco-friendly power source, and it reduces the reliance on the traditional energy and reduces the carbon footprints as well. Another thing that we are heavily pushing for the municipalities is the electronic receipts. So it means that there is no need to actually print a physical paper. What we provide is a possibility to scan a QR code and get your electronic receipt. or specify your email and send electronic receipt to the email of the end user. In these cases, we again are reducing the waste, so the paper waste. We're reducing the operational cost, and also we're supporting the more environmentally friendly solutions. I mentioned already about the design and overall look and feel of the pay station. By the way, the one that you see on the screen is actually our new pay station that we've recently developed. Apart from that, there are also things that you can do from the user interface. Like, for example, put a user-friendly welcome screen that will, for example, that will already explain some information to the end user. For instance, in Riga municipality project, we've used the screen that would explain to the audience how they can get the electronic receipt, because that was a new feature. But from the back office system, it actually will make it possible to change the welcome screen depending on the group of the pay stations, for example, or depending on the day. So if you have a public holiday, you can put on the welcome screen an information that the parking is actually free and there is no need to pay for that. Already mentioned that before, but localization is crucial. So in our pay stations, we do provide a way to choose from multiple languages, and it's easily localizable. And then from the right top of the screen, the user can select which language they want to proceed within the user interface. Versatile services. So I mentioned already about integration with mobile apps to ensure the seamless payment experience, but there are other use cases. One of them is in our pay stations, we do support the EV charging. So it's possible to pay not only for the parking, but it's also possible to pay for the EV charging. And since electric vehicle adoption is booming, then we believe that also that in the future on the municipality level there will be a requirement for the pay stations to be able to use the pay stations to also pay for the public EV charging stations. One more thing that I didn't mention before is the various use cases and the notifications that we can provide within the interface. So, for instance, we believe that it's important to allow the users to be able to pay for the future. So let's say that in the city, the paid parking is from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. But you parked your car in the city, for example, at 9 p.m., you don't need to pay. But the next day, the payment will start from the 8 a.m. So previously, you would have to wake up, go to the parking meter, or pay from the mobile app, for example, if you have it, of course, in order to ensure that you don't get fined. But in our vision, you're able to pay for the future from the parking meter. For example, you came at 9 p.m. and you are able to select the time for the future, and it will already take into account that, for example, the time from 9 p.m. until 8 a.m. would be free, but all the time afterwards, after 8 a.m. would actually start based on the tariff that was configured for by the municipality. We also make it possible to pay for different zones. So on this specific screen, you see one of our steps in the user flow, where sometimes the parking meter could be located between two different zones. So in case of the Riga municipality, there are actually six zones, but the sixth zone is not displayed here on the screen. So sometimes the parking meter is placed between two zones, let's say between the zone A and B. And for the tourist, they might not know what zone they have to pay for, right? Or they might not be able to easily find another parking meter. And by providing this option of being able to pay for the different zones, that provides an extra flexibility that might be needed for the end user. Apart from the multilingual support, it's also important to have the help section where user can click on the different questions that might arise during the parking during their parking payment process. Like, for example, what are the working hours? What are the how big are the fines for not paying for parking? Or what are the specific tariffs during the special days like holidays? And we believe that it's crucially important to have the help section within the user interface of the pay station, so that the user can click on that and they can receive all the information that is needed before they actually make a call to the municipality itself. It's also, I've already emphasized a point that it's crucial to have the intuitive and user-friendly interface, and therefore it's important to provide, for example, countdown warnings. So in case the session in the pay station has been started and then the person maybe went away, or they are kind of trying to find the credit card inside their pocket, it's important to display a big counter with a timeout of when the session will be finished for the user to allow to end the session. Another example could be that if you are paying outside of the parking outside of the payment parking hours, it's important to show the notification to inform the user that they are paying right now outside of the paid parking hours, and therefore they will pay that for the time in the future. In the older pay stations, this is something that was never done, and so the end users were always left to do the guesswork themselves. But we want to eliminate as much of this guesswork as possible in order to intuitively guide the user through the interface. Enough of me speaking. Let's do another exercise. I will show you a couple of pay stations on the screen, and I want you to guess where the space stations are from. So what is the city or the country? Country already will do, but if you also will guess the city, that would be even better. So let's start with that. Any guesses where the space
China.
station is from? China.
China.
Okay, that's a good guess. Okay, and we have a winner. Indeed, it's Tokyo, Japan. So Axel, good job on guessing this one. Next one. Any guesses? Indeed, this one is Riga, Latvia. Let's go with the third one. This one is a bit more complicated. Any guesses about that?
Amsterdam.
There's actually one. Sorry, say again.
Amsterdam, no?
It is Amsterdam, indeed. Edgar, how did you guess it?
Well, I've seen it.
Okay, well, that's... And Axel got it right as well. So it's Amsterdam, Netherlands. Amsterdam actually has a symbol of this 3X, which can be seen on the left top corner of the pay station. And now the last one. Any guesses about this? New York, USA. Exactly. This one is located in New York. There is a yellow taxi that is that can be used as a hint. Okay, so let's move on to the requirements part of managing the pay stations, because if you have a fleet of 100, 200, 300, or maybe even 1,000 of pay stations put across the city, there should be a software that will allow you to control and to monitor and to manage them in an efficient way. And we'll share with you what are the requirements for this platform. So first of all, the most important thing is remote monitoring and maintenance. I cannot emphasize the importance of this enough, as when you have so many pieces of hardware placed around the city, and also if one of them doesn't work, you're basically losing money. Therefore, it's critical to have health monitoring, so be able to see whether the connectivity whether the pay station is online or offline, whether everything is right with the POS terminal, whether if in case of cash options, whether the coin or banknote recyclers are not jammed, whether the safe is not full, whether the door of the pay station is closed and not open, whether there is enough CPU, enough memory on the PC that is installed inside the pay station, and the list can go on and on. Apart from remote health monitoring, it's also very important to be able to set up a notification so that in case there is any warning, any error, the technicians receive this notification. Second thing is ability to install updates at scale. I already mentioned it in the past, but it's extremely important to be able to deploy. So for example, if there is a bug or an issue with a payment system, for instance, it's important if you fix it in the new version so that you can deploy it across all devices in a matter of seconds. Third, but definitely not least important, is the possibility to track and plan technician visits. So this platform should have a possibility to track when technicians visited certain pay stations, what type of jobs they did there. Technicians should be able to put the comments, what are the components, for example, that have been replaced or changed. This would allow to keep the hygiene and to keep track of what has been happening, because when you have so many devices, it's very easy to lose track. Next big category is reporting and insights. So it's important to have a detailed reporting in a lot of the different dimensions, like monitoring the transactions, payments, monitoring the service history that I've already mentioned before, monitoring the communication with the different external systems in case the on-street parking platform is integrated with something else, be able to break down by the payment methods, cards, cash, and so on and so forth, be able to break down by the products in case you're selling more than one product, so that you can understand whether this is actually makes sense or not. And a lot of other operational reporting that should be able to be done. Event log journals. So that's quite important to troubleshoot some issues and understand for example, for call center or support people, whenever they receive a call or a message from someone who is complaining that, for example, pay station doesn't work, the payment cannot be processed, I cannot proceed to the next screen. These people should have an event log where they would be able to see, based on the pay station ID or number, what has been happening. So what events have happened, how user has processed through the different steps of the journey, and where the issue occurred, and whether the issue occurred at all or not. Because sometimes you can receive a call from someone who is complaining that they cannot pay, but in reality, they didn't even have the intention to pay. Third point is having flexible and customizable system. Here, I mostly refer to zone management and tariff configurations, because you might have you might set your tariffs at the moment, but this can change over the time. This can change, for example, in a year or 2 years time. You don't want to stick to the same rates. First of all, the economy grows, the prices increase, there is inflation, and you might want to increase your rates. But also you might understand, based on the reporting, that you should set a higher rates for the peak hours or for the peak days, but maybe you should lower them on the weekends, or maybe you should make one of the weekends completely free of charge. Our system provides a possibility to set special rates for public holidays, set minimum, maximum fees, and configure in a very flexible way how you set your tariffs. Also, there could be different tariffs for different zones. So one example that I mentioned before, in Riga, there are 6 different payment zones, and it's important to be able to control and adjust these parking zones efficiently. If your city continues to develop, you might want to add more zones, or you might want to to increase the width of your zone where you have higher rates, and you should be able to do so even after the pay stations are installed. So it's important for the system to be pretty flexible. I briefly mentioned alerts and notifications. So setting up custom alerts goes without saying, but also it's important to remotely manage the screens. So for example, adjust the brightness during the night and day hours so that people always can actually see what should be there on the screen. Changing the welcome screen messages, adding some announcements. When, for example, big events are happening in the city so that people know how they should behave. So all of these functionalities are possible within the platform, on-street parking platform that we provide. And last but not least, integration with external systems. Apart from mobile apps, this is also the enforcement system so that controllers can actually understand who paid for the parking and who didn't. The most common issues with pay station management in terms of user experience are confusing interfaces, unclear signage, unresponsive touchscreens, brightness issues, as I mentioned before. And in case of payment and system failures, there are also a lot of things that can go wrong, like stuck receipts, stuck banknotes, issues with the internet that lead to the transaction failures, payment processing errors, like for example, some cards, specific cards being declined, or maybe the pay station stops to accept the cash. Bunch of technical and security challenges can come as well, like malfunctions due to the weather conditions. For example, when the internal system of the pay station gets overheated in countries like Saudi Arabia, that could be the case, or Emirates. Or for example, the touch screen stops being responsive because it's too cold. So I myself am from Latvia, and sometimes in winters we have -20. So it's important to have a heater component inside the pay station so that these issues do not occur. Integration issues are also always the challenge, because if you have multiple systems, if protocol or some data points change, then it might break the full flow. And another topic that I've already mentioned in the past is vandalism and tampering. Now the question to you, what do you think are the most common issues that occur with the on-street parking meters or pay stations? Any guesses for that? Okay, Gleb is saying that no internet. Any other guesses? Not working at all. Vandalism, payment issues. So according to International Parking and Mobility Institute, based on their report, the biggest issue is payment system failures. So jammed coin slots or some malfunctions with the POS terminals or card readers. This is the issue number one. All the issues that you've mentioned in the chat are definitely also very important, but this has been coined as the number one issue. So now, as we've talked through the challenges, we talked through the trends, we talked through the requirements of the on-street management platform, how it's possible to replace the outdated pay stations with the new ones. So what are the possibilities and how we can do it in a more efficient way? So I mentioned in the past that we here at BIS coined a so-called retrofit approach that could be useful for municipalities whenever they want to do it in a very cost-efficient way. So what is the approach itself? It first involves the evaluation of the existing hardware to identify what can be reused for example, housing. Maybe it's in a good condition. Maybe it's made from the good materials, and it actually can be completely reused. Or it might be a POS terminal. For example, it's a decent, pretty well-working POS terminal, and it can stay there at the pay station. There is no need to change it. But there might be some components that require upgrading, like, for example, screen, where it's no longer some, depending whether it's LED or LCD screen, maybe it's not some crystals have ignited, and it's not possible to see very well through the screen anymore. Or it might be that from the inside of the pay station, the PC is no longer it reached the end of its lifespan, and it requires replacement. So in this retrofit approach, we in the case study that I will share with you a bit later, we've evaluated what is the hardware that is there. We've identified the components that we would like to keep because they were of the good condition, and we've defined all the hardware that required changes. We used a modular approach to swap the outdated parts. So this helped us to ensure minimal disruption to any operations. And on top of that, we've installed our own software platform on the PC that is added within the pay station. So that new software allowed us to provide more payment options, that allowed us to completely customize the user interface, that allowed us to increase the security, as previous system was quite vulnerable with to some third-party systems. And it allowed us to connect it to our on-street parking management platform that had way more features in terms of the remote operations. Benefits of this approach are there are multiple. So first of all, it's huge cost savings. So if we would have to replace the full pay station with a new one, you can imagine the cost. And given that still, even though there are some benefits to the pay stations, nowadays, at least in the countries where we operate, we see that mobile apps are used for 60 to 80% of the times for the payments, and for the rest, the parking meters or pay stations are used. So municipalities do not want to spend tens of millions on changing and replacing their pay stations, which is quite logical. Therefore, the retrofit approach could be useful, as it already uses existing infrastructure and minimizes the cost. Quick deployment is another benefit, as it's possible to, if we go through the whole manufacturing process of the new pay station, that could take weeks. And if you at your city have 200, 300 pay stations, the whole process could be quite lengthy. While here, it's possible to accomplish the replacement much faster, and therefore it will reduce the downtime. For example, in our case, we've been able to swap 150 pay stations in about 2 months, a bit more. Also, by utilizing this retrofit approach, you can increase the lifespan of the whole pay station, because the common lifespan would be from 5 to 7 years. And by upgrading the critical components and leaving the rest that could stay, by doing that, you actually increase the whole lifespan of the pay station, and it can stay and work there for maybe 5 years more. And last but not least is, nowadays there is a big push and focus on sustainability, and by reusing some of the components, you reduce the electronic waste, and it helps to meet the environmental goals of the municipalities that they are so sought after. So speaking of the project, I've already mentioned it a couple of times during today's webinar, but I will specify some key facts. So we've launched our new system for the Riga municipality on 2nd of January of 2025. as part of this project, we had to retrofit 200 pay stations. 150 were installed on the street, plus 50 are used in the reserved for expanding the zones in the future, and also just using as a reserved pay station in case something goes wrong. There are 6 different zones in Riga municipality, so the complexity was quite high, and we've been able to achieve and to accomplish this project within. So the installation process took us a bit more than 2 months. The preparation steps before that, in terms of the hardware, took us about a month to be prepared to actually go and swap everything on site. And we also have built some additional integrations and functionalities for the municipality to integrate with their internal system, which took us for roughly 3 to 4 more months. So basically, in less than half a year, we've been able to accomplish the full project. But here, again, the complexity was quite high in terms of integrating with internal systems of the Riga municipality. In case of a smaller city, this could not be the case, and it can be accomplished even faster. And based on our stats, we've been able to save up to 70% for Riga municipality by using this retrofit approach. Otherwise, their cost would be much higher, so 70% higher than it were in the reality. And I hope that more municipalities would adopt this approach. Of course, it needs to be evaluated case by case. You've seen some of the very old parking meters, like for example, coin-based. Obviously, you cannot do anything there. You cannot just swap the components. You would need to replace it entirely. But these are probably the parking meters and the pay stations that are already way over their lifespan. But in case the pay stations have been installed, let's say 7 years ago, 10 years ago, then there is a high chance that the retrofit option could be utilized in this project. So that wraps it up for today. We've covered most of the topics that we wanted to go through. We have some time still left for questions and answers. So please, in case anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or just unmute your mic and ask the question. I will be more than happy to answer it.
So thank you, Alex, for the summary. I'm interested if you are also integrated interfaces for LPR, license plate recognition, at on-street parking.
Yes,
Did
so
you?
we did. So we do have the LPR interface. Basically, we can engage later. I can share some interfaces that we have in the on-street pay stations. And but the flow would be, yeah, you specified as an end user, you specify your license plate number. You are able to select the time that you would have to stay at the parking, or if there is, for example, if it's not an on-street but off-street, you would be able to get the data from the ANPR system to understand when you have entered the specific facility, and then it would give you the tariff already based on the time when you entered. So both interfaces are available.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't have any more questions. My time also is running out. So, but thank you for the summary again. And I hope I will get a new invitation for the next webinar.
Sounds good. Thanks for joining, Axel.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Likewise. Have a good one. Okay, I see that some people are typing, so maybe there will be a couple more questions. Or people are just typing. Okay, thank. Well, maybe. So for how long did Riga municipality remain without parking meters during the retrofit? Basically for 0. So their old system was operating, and then on the 2nd January we made a switch, and half of the pay stations were already using our new system, half of the pay stations were disabled from the old system. So there were times when not all the pay stations were operational, but there was no time that municipality was without the system. And we made sure that we updated the pay stations within the specific region so that there is at least one pay station with a new system on the 2nd of January within 5-minute walking distance. Okay, Robbie, during the evaluation should go on every pay station or just on one sample? Just on one sample, no, it's not needed to evaluate everything. And the second question, is it has a cost to evaluate or BIS providing free evaluation process? In our previous experience, we've provided this free of charge because we've been interested ourselves to get the project. But I think here it depends on the case-by-case basis.
Can I clarify, please, my first question?
Yeah, go ahead, Robbie.
Okay, so my question was like about that every pay station, it could be that it has its own problem that is not functioning well, or we just care about how to upgrade it.
I think what you're referring to is more related to like maintenance. Obviously, each pay station can have malfunctions in the specific component, but if we change the whole system, then we need to evaluate what are the components of the system, and then using one sample will be enough to make the decision for everything. But just doing the maintenance, it's probably not our business.
Okay, thank you. Now it's clear.
Alex, I think a follow-up question on this one. Is one sample enough to define what kind of components should be replaced for, like, let's say, 300 pay stations, or there should be multiple samples that should be analyzed?
Depends on the project. If there is one variation of the pay station, so one model, one product, right? Then one sample is enough. If there will be multiple variations, for example, there were historically like different providers or one provider who provided different models, then yeah, well, one sample from each of these models will be required to make an analysis. Okay, I think then we can wrap it up because we're on time and we've answered all the questions I think that were there. Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you those who've been active and who asked the question, and I see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Alex. Bye-bye.